The spirit of January 6th is still very much alive. It's been 2 years since the insurrection at the Capitol, which was clearly a concerted effort to attempt to overturn the election. And since then, we've learned a lot about the people that fomented this and the reasons why. We have hundreds of guilty pleas on federal charges against the insurrectionists. We have hundreds more arrests still awaiting trial. The January 6th committee has completed its investigation and is now recommending charges for people around Trump. We've completed now sedition trials for the Oath Keepers, and their allies in the Proud Boys are now awaiting trial for their seditious conspiracy charges. We've gotten through a lot of the investigatory material, but there is still so much to learn going forward. As the Proud Boys go through this trial, we're going to learn more about the insurrectionist connections to Trump and his people. We know that Trump not only mobilized people to the Capitol on January 6th, but that there were so many actors around him that were in contact with him, telling him this is going to be really bad. And so we know that Trump knew what was coming, and that he still instigated things leading up to and into that day through the investigations that the January 6th committee did and through DOJ prosecutions. So we know what Trump knew. We know that he declined to tamp things down, and we know that he kicked the hornet's nest on the day. The reason why it's so important is because the Proud Boys clearly had a plan in place to launch civil war on January 6th. They were in contact with Roger Stone on the day, and they were in contact with a number of other people in Trump's circle. And what's so interesting about this trial is that there are several Proud Boys who have already pleaded guilty to federal charges, including seditious conspiracy. In agreement with the government, some of the Proud Boys are going to be testifying against one another, and there are people in leadership positions testifying against their own. So you have like a mob-style trial going forward. But you also may learn through those testimonies what the Proud Boys knew and who they were talking to. While there are hundreds of guilty pleas and hundreds more people charged over January 6th, the spirit of January 6th is still very much alive on the right wing. You have candidates and politicians who have embraced the big lie, which is that the election was stolen. They're still pushing that rhetoric forward. You still have the extremist groups out in the street attacking people, harassing people, and mobilizing on the GOP's grievances. And you have a GOP that has refused to rebuff any of these people and often celebrate them for being the soldiers of Trump in the street. And until the GOP decides they're going to rebuff, pull these guys out of the street who have been mobilized for them, you're going to see this continue. All summer last year, you had Proud Boys, neo-Nazis, Oath Keepers, other extremists out in the street mobilizing on Trump and Tucker Carlson's grievances like LGBTQ and drag queens. You had Proud Boys at drag queen story hours, at row demonstrations, outside abortion clinics, outside children's hospitals where they were discussing trans health care. Anything that the GOP complains about, you have these little armies of extremists ready to mobilize, ready to go out there to harass and commit violence. And they're continuing that today. And so regardless of the fact that we have all of these people behind bars, including some of the leaders of these extremist groups that committed the insurrection, you still have the spirit, people in the street ready to attack on GOP's grievances. I think that January 6th was almost like pulling a pin on a grenade. You cannot undo what has been done. But we also know that a lot of the country doesn't like this stuff. We know that Trump's picks did horribly overall during the last election. And we know that a lot of the Republican Party doesn't necessarily agree with having fascist extremists marching in the street for them. But it would absolutely help matters if the GOP, law enforcement, right-wing media came together and said, this isn't us, we are not going to allow this. As we go forward into Trump's next election, we're going to see, again, these mini January 6 operations going on throughout the country. When it's not stop the steal that Trump is complaining about, when it's about trans people, you're going to have masses of people in makeshift body armor and weaponry outside children's hospitals and outside public libraries where they have drag queen story hours. We have to decide as Americans whether we're going to accept these mini civil wars happening over and over and over again. We have to decide whether we're going to allow the spirit of January 6th to continue.